But you can understand the skepticism, can't you, Ambassador, on this side of the border? Because, you know, the 51st state stuff, and I know you said that that was gone away, but then the president put it out on social media. If you join, you get Golden Dome for free.
Let's get it clarified. I said it was away unless the president or Carney decided to bring it up. And coincidentally, I think you could argue, you could make a credible case that as the president brought it up, maybe the Canadians were bringing it up, and maybe the media was bringing it up at the same time. Yeah. It wasn't just the president of the United States with his tweet. It was 36 hours of nonstop media coverage and Canadians talking about, this is proving our sovereignty. And it's kind of like you're thumping the president in the chest for 36 hours, and you shouldn't be, but
I would argue that it was a hell of a lot more than 36 hours, that the Liberals created their entire
36 days.
Solid, absolutely. The Liberals completed their entire campaign, ran over the line with the elbows up garbage.
Yeah, I see it on bumper stickers now. Like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Anti-US sentiment, anti-51st state sentiment. It wasn't, I mean, Donald Trump mentioned it, yeah, but it was the Canadian media that ran with it, that picked it up, ran with it, and set it on fire, and got everybody who was even slightly left-leaning all worked into a tizzy. But I'm so happy that the Americans are calling them out on this, because that's exactly what happened in Canada. That's exactly what happened in Canada, and they knew it would. It's a crazy thing. Like, the media knew it would.
Of course, they knew it would help Mark Carney. They were running around calling Danielle Smith a traitor because she was deciding to take her diplomacy directly to the Americans instead of having to run it through the failures and flunkies in Ottawa. And it saved us by and large, and it continues to save us. We'll get to that tweet in a second. But anybody who wasn't viciously, mouth-frothingly anti-American was traded as some sort of a traitor, like some sort of seditionist, in this weird jingoistic new Canadian patriotism, when I'm old enough to remember, like 6 months ago, when the Liberals thought that we were a genocidal state and we shouldn't have Canada Day and we should be so embarrassed of our own history. And then all of a sudden it's like, look, see if you can find oranges grown in Canada and buy those at the grocery store, as if that were a thing. But yeah,
it kicked off such a wild media frenzy that absolutely impacted the outcome of the election in Canada. Had we not had the media jumping on board, doing exactly what they knew it would do, it's almost like the media was doing the Liberal Party of Canada's bidding, almost like that.
Speaking of which, as I said, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra has a good relationship with Danielle Smith, and she's been doing her own thing, talking to the Americans. And Pete Hoekstra says, very glad to see that Albertans can once again enjoy a cold U.S. beer or a glass of wine. Thanks to Premier Danielle Smith for your leadership in removing this barrier to fair and reciprocal trade. And then the first person underneath that says, careful, you'll trigger the elbows up crowd.
Well, we're going to do that this weekend in Red Deer, Sheila Gunn Reid. We're going to do exactly that.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thank you, Danielle Smith. And thanks for noticing, Pete, Ambassador Pete.
Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. Now, I touched on this just briefly, and so did you, on the feds wanting to turn everything into a national park. And that's their way of controlling what we do with the land and how we develop the land. And if you've ever been to an oil and gas lease, these are in some of the most beautiful places in the world. And when they're done developing them, you can't even tell that a pipeline went through. You just see a tiny, tiny little footprint of industry, and everything else is returned to its natural beauty, human and nature living in harmony. But Steven Guilbeault wants that done a different way. Danielle Smith reignites feud with Guilbeault. I don't know if it needs to be reignited. I believe it has never gone out. That flame continues to burn over his plans for Canada's national parks. Smith said she wouldn't consent to the creation of any new federal parks in
In Alberta.
Alberta. Now, something I didn't realize, because I was like, why won't he? Why is he talking about federal parks? He remains, though he is not the environment minister, the parks minister. He's still in charge of parks, even though he's over at Heritage. So what the Liberals did is they took parks, which has been traditionally under the purview of the environment minister, and Guilbeault took it with him over to Heritage.
Oh, little shell game, shuffling Guilbeault over to a new portfolio, but then allowing him to keep the one thing that would disallow human development in Canada. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Look at what our wonderful premier said. I do not want to see one additional acre of territory that's within Alberta turned into a federal park. We certainly don't need Steven Guilbeault telling us what's important to protect in Alberta. If there is critical habitat that Albertans want to protect, we'll put it in provincial parks.
Amazing. Perfect response, Danielle Smith, as per usual.
Yep.
It's almost like she sees right through him.
Yeah, we know what you're doing.
Yeah.
We know what you're doing. I know that
a land grab to keep us from developing things that are important to us on the prairies. That's
also, if you turn vast tracts of our property into a national park, then they will leverage that against us. Oh, you can go, but you can't take your national parks with you.
Right.
We're already taking care of them. You idiots burned them down. Like,
yes. Yeah. It'll just be another thing to negotiate when we leave.
Exactly.
So may as well just not even play that game. May as well not. I hope Danielle Smith finds out where he's planning on putting these new national parks on the prairies. And I hope the Western premiers cut him off at the chase. Just cut him off at the chase, make it a provincial park preemptively, and just eat his lunch in front of him.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with guys like this.
If I had to guess, it'll be the eastern slopes of the Rockies, Yellowstone to Yukon, which is an American charity, wants to turn all of that into national parks as a means to block oil and gas development. And that would also mean blocking pipelines. And then they said they're going to use grizzly bear habitat or whatever endangered species they think will in there as a, like, identify the species, push for the park to protect it,
declare it endangered or threatened or whatever. And this is the premise by which they are going to stop development of any kind.
There are people out there who still think that polar bears are in need of protection. I had no idea that there were still people who believed that myth. It's crazy.
And yet the polar bears seem to be doing a-okay.
They're exploding in population, actually. And they're, like, they routinely cancel outdoor trick-or-treating in places like Churchill, Manitoba.
Right, because there are so many. Because there are so many polar bears.
Imagine living in a place like Churchill and then having to listen to, like, the environmentalists prattle on about how endangered the delicate polar bears are.
Apex predators find a way. It's weird.
They do.
So weird.
Want to stay on top of the latest current events, but don't trust the mainstream media to help you do that? Then check out our daily live stream coverage of the latest news and totally unscripted at rebelnews.com/roundup.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.